Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today, I have a pleasure having Estela Garcia Lopez. She is with OCP. We've been having a series this week with OCP Composer. It's been a pleasure. And we're going to go a little bit more in depth in the conversations to talk about more about Hispanic music in general and workshops and things that's coming down the pipeline at OCP. Estela, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to speak with you again.
Happy Friday.
Thank you.
It is ironic to... Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No,
it's been... No, go ahead.
It's been so sunny and beautiful this week, and I've been looking forward to the weekend. So I'm so glad it's Friday, and I've got my green smoothie right next to me, so I'm set.
It's ironic. It's Friday the 13th at all days.
I know. Interesting. That means that we are lucky. It's a lucky day.
Okay, we're going to take it as being lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I guess dive into, kind of tell us, kind of bring us back. Tell us where you're from and tell us something about yourself and your involvement there at OCP.
Okay, well, I come from Mexican family, and I grew up in Los Angeles, and my family is very traditional, I guess if you want to put it that way. They're very strong Catholics, and it's part of our culture to go to church, and it just embodies our lives. So since I was a little girl, I've been involved in church activities. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would make music a career, but it just turned out that way. I moved up to Portland, Oregon after I finished my music degree. They had positions opened for bilingual editors, and I was kind of recruited. And so lucky for me, I found a job in music. So, and
wow.
It's a job that I love. Not very many people get to do what they love. I love music, and I love being a Catholic. I love God. I believe in Him. And then at the same time, I get to serve the Hispanic community that which I hold very close to my heart, of course. So, and then lucky for me, I get to work with my husband as well. And I know you interviewed him not too long ago, Rudy Lopez.
Yeah.
And so I feel very lucky. I've been in Portland, Oregon for almost 12 years this August, and I just feel blessed.
Wow. So tell us about what you do at OCP as an editor.
As an editor, my job is to make sure that the scores that go into hymnals, missals, songbooks, octavos are presented well and make sense for the customer. But I also get to participate in music review. So when we do the initial screening of music submissions, we want to make sure that the music works well for the customers and that it fits a need. And so it helps that I'm in music ministry at my parish, so it helps me stay connected. So whether I worked at OCP or not, I would still be leading music somewhere because it's who I am. But working at a parish, it helps me stay connected to what the real needs are.
Wow. So that process of them coming in and submitting material, either a CD with music, tell us what that's like. They submit the materials to you guys, and what happens there?
So, yeah, usually what happens is that the music is submitted, and then it goes through an initial screening. If something is way, way off the mark, they don't bring it to the committee itself. But if the piece or CD or music collection or it passes the initial screening, then it goes to the review committee. And then that committee is made up of various different types of people with different skills, different experiences, which is good. You want a committee that is well-rounded. And I mean, you have theologians, you have high church musicians, you have contemporary musicians. So you get an array of different input, and so that if I don't think of something, maybe somebody else will think of something. And if the piece is good, of course it's accepted. But if it's almost there, the committee will make suggestions. It's great, but if it would have this, it would be better. Or if it would have that, or the text needs to be reworked a little bit, or like if it's a psalm, the bishops like it when we publish psalms or that are verbatim to the lectionary. And of course, nowadays the mass parts, the new Roman Missal changes, has been our priority to publish mass settings that are verbatim to the new lectionary. So OCP works very hard to follow the bishop's recommendations.
Okay. So the gatekeepers that they originally submit the music to, and the gatekeepers is a small committee. They listen through everything first and screen it. Kind of tell us what those people normally consist of, and then how long does it normally take before if it's accepted, it takes to go to your broad committee?
With this economy, it's very hard to publish everything you want to publish. And so you kind of go by what the needs are, what are the priorities. And, even though there's a good piece of music that we may have accepted or liked, it doesn't mean that we could publish it right away. So sometimes it could be right away. Sometimes it could take time until an opportunity comes up where we could include it. So it's really hard to say, but I know that there are a lot of submissions that come in, and I know that the review process sometimes takes a while, months sometimes, and so we just ask people to be patient, and we try to review music as it comes in, and so we do our best to get back to composers with, I know that when it's first received, they get a letter saying, we've received your music. And then if it's not accepted, a letter is sent out saying that it is not accepted or needed at this time. But if there's possibility for use and everybody likes it and it fits a need, then an acceptance letter will go out. However, as to when it will be published, that's the difficult part.
What things that are common issues that you see all the time on a regular basis that the gatekeepers always going to turn down? And also, if it gets to the gatekeepers, then it gets to your committee, what things you see that is a common problem?
Sometimes, there's a huge, Christian contemporary movement. And sometimes some of the music that comes in is a little too out there, So since we are primarily a liturgical company, publishing company, we always look to pieces that are easily sung by an assembly, pieces that stay true to Catholic theology. We wouldn't want to publish anything that is vague or contradictory or suspicious. And we always look for music that truly represents the message of the piece of music. So you want a good marriage of text and music. And of course, we want to look for pieces that fill a need. Now, when I say that we are primarily a liturgical company, it doesn't mean that we are not opening the doors to more contemporary music for things beyond the Sunday liturgy. We are. So, but we are just cautious and careful when publishing this type of music. Sometimes we get music that we have so much, and sometimes you have to evaluate, do we need another setting of Psalm 23? The Lord is my shepherd. And is this stronger than what we have? Is it in a style that we don't have? So you have to evaluate the new submissions against what we currently have. There's a lot of things to consider when reviewing new music, but But what I tell people, you have nothing to lose in submitting music. If you have it, submit it. But what I would recommend is that you should test it with your parish, test it with your choir, consult with folks, ask feedback from your pastor so that when it comes in, it's well thought out and tested and it'll come in better shape. So the chances of it being accepted are higher. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay. On the flip coin of that, things that you see or things you're really in need of, things you're in need of, number one, and number two, that we always love this. It meets our needs. It builds something that we really want, but we really like this. We wish we had more of this.
Mm-hmm. What we've done in the past is sometimes if we know that certain composers have a certain skill for something that we really need for a piece of music, we will ask them to write a specific piece of music for this particular thing that we need. There have been other instances where we open it to anyone, especially with Hispanic music. Sometimes we don't get high-quality submissions, and so we've opened it up to anyone who has this skill. I remember maybe about 8 years ago, we wanted to develop Spanish contemporary music, and we wanted to find new talent, and we developed a competition for Spanish contemporary music. And we got maybe about 100 submissions, and we just opened it up to anyone. And to our surprise, we got music submissions from Argentina, from Chile, from Mexico City, and of course from many different parts of the U.S. It's like, whoa, you're out there? And I understand that sometimes we just need to open the door and ask, hey, you got music for kids, or you got contemporary music, or you have music for this or that, go ahead, submit it. And so that was a successful project. That initial project was called Primavera con Cristo. And so it was a collection of 25 songs. And so I feel that seeking music in that way is a successful way to solicit music.
Okay. We're going to take a break for a second, and we're going to continue with the conversation. We'll be back in a moment with Estela Garcia Lopez. Be back in a moment.
You're listening to the Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed, with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com. Welcome back to the Core. Once again, here's Tim Jacquet.
Well, we're back with Estela Garcia Lopez with OCP. A question real quick. I have a question here regarding OCP focus. I mean, each publisher has their own genre of music, and I guess a decision happened some time ago. OCP decided to really focus on Hispanic music, which really brought them into a different era. What was the pinpoint that OCP, even though that they had this big growing catalog, they have a lot of products that has been successful, a great publishing library, you decide to focus in the Catholic community and pretty much in the world on Hispanic music?
About maybe, was it 20 years ago or maybe more, obviously before my time here at OCP. The publisher's name was Fritz Maher, and around that time, the Hispanic community was growing in numbers, and as it is now, so nothing has changed. And he realized that there was no resource to serve that community, at least no organized resource. What typically happens with Hispanic choirs is that they have their custom-made binder with words only, and you've probably seen that, Tim.
I've just seen that.
I remember you saying that you work with, And so, and half the time they don't even know where the songs came from, And that's how I grew up too. When I joined the choir when I was 12 years old, everyone had their custom made binders with text only and chords over the text, and with all the songs in there, and with no composer listed or copyrights or anything. And so, of course, when I was growing up, we would sing Pescador de Hombres, and of course, I thought that was from Mexico. That's from my town, you know. My grandmother used to sing it, and then it wasn't until I started using published music that I realized, like, whoa, that song is from Spain. And Cesario Gavarain wrote it. You know, it's like, whoa. And so OCP had the vision to create a resource that could help the community in their worship. I mean, the Hispanic community in their worship. And Fritz Marr and I believe John Lim at that time, John Lim is the current publisher, but at that time they both went to Spain because a lot of the music from Spain was obviously very popular. And so they went to gather a lot of these songs, and they gathered a lot of music also from Mexico and looked to see what was popular in those days in the U.S. And of course, it was a lot of music from Mexico as well. And so, thank goodness, they had the vision to create a resource for the community, and they thought that it was important enough to do it. And so, the first resource the OCP developed was a book called Cánticos. And I know Mary Frances Reza had a big part in that, in doing the researching and exploring and gathering of music and pioneering that effort. And so it's exciting just to talk about it. And then after Cánticos 1 was kind of the building block for what we call now Floricanto. And so the first edition came out not too long after Cánticos. And I was a user of Floricanto 1, and thank goodness, you know, they put that resource together. Finally, we had an organized resource with mass settings and psalms and songs with different themes, and so it was a blessing for the Hispanic community. And of course, after that, 10 years after that, we developed Floricanto 2, which is around the time that I was hired. So I had the pleasure of working on Floricanto 2, developing it and seeking more music, making it more complete Psalter, more mass settings, more bilingual music, and more music from other Latin cultures. And, you know, of course, I transitioned to Floricanto 2 in my parish, and I love it. It's a strong hymnal. And then now it brings us now to Floricanto 3, which was published not too long ago, which is an even stronger hymnal that includes music from many other Latin cultures, because that was one of the recommendations we kept hearing from folks. You know, we need more music from Puerto Rico. We need more music from the Dominican Republic and from South America. And then, of course, with the ever, you know, looming changes in the new Roman Missal, we also had to include bilingual settings that were up to date and reflected the new Roman Missal changes. So it's exciting to be a part of Floricanto 3. I was the project editor for that, and so I'm excited about it.
How does it feel to produce Floricanto 3, and you were at the beginning of Floricanto, and you grew up with it, and all of a sudden you birthing a new hymn book for a growing community, and you're at the helm of it?
Well, it was exciting, and I felt a huge weight on my shoulders because, you know, I represent the Hispanic community here at OCP, along with many of my other colleagues, but I felt a lot of pressure being in the selection committee and trying to decide what songs do you go in. I work closely with Pedro Rubalcaba, Mary Straub, and Rudy Lopez, Vicky de Mesas, and many other people to try to discern, you know, what direction should we go and what songs do we need. And Pedro traveled to Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. We sought advice from people from Chile and other countries trying to figure out what songs were popular, which songs should we include, and of course evaluating all the music that we had published since Floricanto 2. What songs from these popular collections, which ones should need to be included in this hymnal. But at the same time, we also have the pressure of figuring out, well, if we add these new songs, we have to drop some other songs that may not be as popular or as relevant anymore. And so it was a huge responsibility, and we had to seek advice from many folks. And we're hoping that we got it right. Then again, I'm sure some folks may not agree or disagree, but I don't know. But we did
you can't ever make all the saints happy.
I know, but we certainly give it a good try. We did our best, and we feel that Floricanto 3 is a strong hymnal. Right now, we are at my parish. We are still currently using Floricanto 2, and I can't wait until we can transition to 3. So, but it's a matter of raising funds and all of that. But it's exciting, to have that available now. It's like when I first started in music, there were not very many resources for us to use, and now, 30 years later, not to give my age away, but there are all these resources for us. Responde y Aclama. That it has the Psalter, the complete Psalter for the entire year, with recordings. There's all these collections and missals, and now we're in the 3rd edition of Floricanto 3. We also have a bilingual missal, Unidos en Cristo, for those bilingual parishes that choose to only get one resource. Most parishes that use Floricanto may use Breaking Bread for the English community, but those parishes that only want to use one resource, Unidos en Cristo, is an excellent choice. So it's exciting.
Do you still have your little book that had all of the different type of songs in it, and that one we just mentioned regarding, I think, at the top of the show, regarding it had the words and the chords, but you really didn't know how the song went. How did you guys, if you took some of those traditional songs, find out who actually wrote them? Or you just say it's public domain?
In the Hispanic community, what happens is that it's not important. It's not, they just kind of pass on the song, and it's just not, what is important is the actual song. And the copyright, most people don't even know what that is all about. Enforcing copyright and copyright laws, what are you talking about? And so for us, we have a job to train them. But I remember growing up when one of the nuns at my parish introduced me to I think it was Cánticos, the first book she gave me. And so I opened it up, and it had music. And of course, it was intimidating for me because I certainly didn't know how to read music. But at that point, that's when reality set in. It's like, whoa, somebody actually wrote this song, and, it just, so that was my first introduction to knowing who wrote the music. But now with Floricanto 1 and 2 and now 3, word has gone out. Most Hispanic choirs doing liturgical music know about Floricanto. You go to any parish and they would have, if they're not using Floricanto, they've at least heard of it. And maybe they're in the process of switching from words only to music scores. So it's intimidating and daunting for many musicians. Some even will get the book, or maybe the pastor will get them the book, but they'll turn around and write the text in a piece of paper and put lyrics over, even though they have the resources. Like, what are you doing? And so it takes a while for some of them to get over the hump. But once they've transitioned, then, just like I did, it was so intimidating. But once you get there, at some point you realize it's okay. And I remember that when I was working with my Spanish choir in LA and even here in Portland, Oregon, I remember there were ladies in the choir that would use the words only hymnal. And I told them, well, if you're going to be in the choir, you're going to use the hymnal with the notes. But I don't know how to do it. Well, you're going to learn. And the faster you start using it, the faster you're going to get used to it. And it was funny because then, like 2 years later, we were singing for a farewell mass for one of the priests. And we wanted to sing Amigo Was tú eres hermano del hombre. It was, what's the name of it? Amigo, I think it was. And we didn't have a score. And so I just gave them words. And then later on, they come back to me. She says, now I realize that I really needed the notes. It would have been helpful. And then I reminded her, it's like, remember, I told you. And she just starts laughing. At that point, she realized she had gotten through that hump. And so for those people that lead Spanish choirs, I encourage you to keep trying. They will come around, but it's just hard. Transitioning is hard. And especially for those choir directors that are working with Spanish and English choirs, especially when they do bilingual services, I just ask for them, be patient and know that this is difficult for them. One, they have to get through the hump of reading music, which is huge. And then secondly, especially for the first generation Hispanics, singing in English, well, that's another hump. So it tests your patience, and your commitment to serve the community, but they will come around. Yeah.
Wow. I guess we're going to take a break for a second, and there's a title song called Cristo.
Cristo Sáname. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Tell us about this song.
I wrote this song maybe about, I don't know, I forget the date, maybe about 8 years ago or 9 years ago, right before my son was born, Rudy Lopez Jr. And in my years of working with the Hispanic community, I realized that there's a lot of pain that they bring when they come to this country. And what I've witnessed as I sing and minister to them and lead the music is that I've seen people transformed before my eyes. And I've seen people come in with a lot of pain, a lot of loneliness, and from discrimination, from many, many things in this country. And it kind of led me to write this song that talks about healing. I don't want to be in the darkness. I want to be in the light, and help me to heal. And of course, at our parish, we had a very strong evangelization movement, and we had a very strong priest at that time who used to invite people to come to the altar and seek prayer, and he would pray over them. And we would sing the song, Cristo Sáname, Jesus, heal me. And it proved to be very powerful. And so, and now, it's become popular among both English and Spanish circles. It's even made it to Breaking Bread. Imagine that.
Wow.
Congratulations. Thank you. One of OCP's biggest, resources, most popular resources. So when it made it in, I was thinking, whoa, I think I've made it.
Well, we're going to give you a little break for a second, and we're going to go ahead and play this track for 4 minutes. We'll be back in 4 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're back with our interview with Estela Garcia Lopez. Tell us the difference between Flor Canto 2 and 3. What are the big differences between the two books?
Well, for one thing, with Flor Canto 3, we paid closer attention to the mass settings, making sure that they followed the Roman Missal. Even though the change has been happening only affected the English mass settings, it didn't mean that the Spanish mass settings had been following the Misal Romano verbatim. So we figured, well, if they are scrutinizing the English mass settings this closely, we better scrutinize the Spanish ones too. And in the Hispanic culture, it's very loose. Even, Hispanic priests, they are kind of loose about following everything verbatim or liturgically correct, especially in Latin countries. So, but since we are in the U.S. and we try to follow the bishop's recommendation, we paid closer attention because, especially, we're trying to teach people how to do things correctly or liturgically correct. And if we want to do that, then we need to make sure that what we publish reflects that. So for Flor Canto 3, it gave us an opportunity to reevaluate, and so we paid a closer attention to that. We also as I said earlier, we wanted to include more music from other Latin countries. Even though we did represented other countries other than Mexico and Spain, we wanted to we wanted to expand it a little more, and so we brought music from Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Chile, El Salvador, a few from Nicaragua, and so we wanted to make sure that it was well-rounded and representative of Hispanics in the U.S. We also wanted to include some of the newer songs that had been published since the previous Florica. So the many new collections from Jaime Cortez and all the Spain composers, Carmelo, Juan Antonio. I know I'm forgetting some. They're from Puerto Rico. So we wanted to make sure that it was up to date and represented some of the newer songs. And at the same time, we had to evaluate, of course, which songs had not been used as much or did not fit our needs anymore, or, some of the mass settings that people love but don't follow the text from the Roman Missal. Like, I don't know. You work with the Spanish choir, right, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe? Yeah. So you may have heard this song. Have you heard that, maybe?
Yeah, do it every Sunday.
Okay. Well, the text for that, is not verbatim. So like that one, we could not include in Floricanto 3. At least. So examples like that, some of the favorites. So if we are trying to follow church documents, then that would no longer be acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question in a few minutes regarding the book, but where are we with the revision of the Spanish language Roman Missal?
That's a very good question. We've been kind of waiting, but it is not expected that the Spanish mass parts or the people's parts will change significantly. They're, at least from what I gather, the English texts have changed to bring them closer to the Latin. Mm-hmm. The translation was, a new translation was done because I guess maybe the first translation took some liberties, or maybe it was a little loose. It was not as close. However, the Spanish was fairly close. So we don't expect as many changes with the people's parts. Maybe there will be some with the priest parts. So we are hopeful, but we are waiting.
Well,
for the official change. Yeah.
Well, is communities with a lot of directors across the board, we want to be fair as we walk into these positions, that we have the community equal, and to go to a new hymn book at $13 a pop. We wanted to make sure we don't, for example, we don't want to have to buy old books, but we don't buy new books in the sense that then something gets outdated and all of a sudden we have to spend $13,000 or close to that, or 10 to 13 grand. That's a huge investment you only have to do, maybe every 10 years. But will they be, in light of that, is there a way to say exactly, hey, are they going to be changing? What are they going to be changing? And how is it going to render this particular Floricanto 3?
That's a very good question. We've been following the trends of other Latin countries, and we've seen their new Roman missals. And in evaluating their changes, it has led us to believe that the changes that will be done are going to be minimal, at least with regard to the people's parts. We feel that our hymnal is sound, and it will still be acceptable for many, many years to come, even after the new Spanish Roman Missal changes are introduced. The one little part that we felt may change was not included in the hymnal. So it was another acclamation. I think, Save us, Savior of the World. I think it's something like that. That particular setting in the text in Spanish may change, and so therefore we did not include it because there was that possibility. But for the most part, everything else we feel confident, and USCCB also has kind of express that to some extent. So we felt comfortable publishing this hymnal as it is.
And Floor Console 2, and as of new songs in the book, what are the big differences as if we put a number value of songs from 2 and 3? How many new songs is in the book and how many old songs have been taken out?
Let's see. I would say maybe about 200 new, maybe.
Wow.
Which is I feel that's a good number of new music, and also knowing that everything was scrutinized, and we wanted to make sure that this resource was sound for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
OCP has been looked up to by many people as being the sound resource for liturgical use, and we want to stay to that, reputation.
Okay.
So we took
Great.
a lot of care, but so I would say that it's a very strong hymnal.
Okay, we're going to play a track in a few minutes, but I have a question from a bookseller. Are there discount rates for the Floor Console book for a retailer?
Oh, yes. For a retailer, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if someone in customer service or can help anyone that has those types of questions, absolutely.
Okay. We're going to go to Misa Santa. Okay, so kind of tell me how you pronounce it.
Santa Cecilia.
Okay. Yeah, I just have it abbreviated here.
Ah.
Okay. Tell us about this piece.
Well, when we heard about the new Roman Missal changes, we were invited to write a bilingual mass. Many composers were invited to write masses, but a handful of composers were asked to write bilingual mass settings. It didn't mean that OCP promised to publish it, but they invited us to submit something, and so Rudy and I decided, well, let's do it. And but before we submitted it, we tried it for like a year at our parish, and we changed it here and there, changed the key, and we wanted to make sure that it worked with our not only the English community but also the Spanish community. And so, to our surprise, it got accepted. So we were, of course, thrilled for OCP to publish it around the same time that our album was published. So it was a double surprise for us that year. So I hope people like it, and we hope that it meets their needs.
Great. We'll go ahead and play it. Be back in a moment.
Thank you.
Hey, we're back now. What is that? Oh, it's great. Hallelujah. I got to use that next Sunday.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we wanted to give it a nice contemporary feel, Latin contemporary sort of feel, but at the same time make it user-friendly and catchy.
Mm-hmm.
And so our whole mass is kind of this way. And what we found is that when we sang it at our bilingual mass, the English group really liked it too, and they took to it right away. So that was exciting for us, for them to have accepted this.
Wow. Tell us, now OCP is a nonprofit, and I know in the past is it still owned by the Diocese of Portland, Oregon?
Yes, we are under their umbrella. So
okay.
The bishop is part of our board of directors, and basically we he has to approve everything we do.
Okay. So it's a plus and minus to that. At least you have his endorsement on one end, but it's kind of like, okay, he's not going to accept this. I guess you kind of keep you kind of even keel. And I've heard the same thing with other publishers have the same thing. They're in a real strong Catholic diocese, and they're really cautious of the archbishops as well. And they don't even have financial stake in the private company where they are. But, I guess what they said, the archbishop is king of his land.
Uh-huh. Well, we've been lucky in that Bishop Blasny, he's just so easygoing, and he's just so flexible and open. And although unfortunately he will be retiring soon, so we'll see what happens.
Then the stress level goes up.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think that I'm not exactly sure I forget who is going to replace him, but I'm quite certain that things will be all right. But OCP works really hard to do the right thing, and so I feel that it will be fine with the new bishop. So.
With our remaining minutes, we want to talk about the Spanish culture itself, internationally, as it play a part of this new Flora Canto book. But mainly, kind of tell us, if you had to explain the Hispanic culture to the general audience, and for example, how the Quinceañera is rich in their culture, the Aule de Guadalupe is so rich in their culture. Kind of tell us about culturally what people really need to know about the Hispanic community and how these little elements like the Los Padres and some of the other elements of the culture play a part of who they are. But also, the second part of that is the differences between, as you mentioned earlier, the first half hour, about, okay, you have the Cuban, you have the Puerto Rican, you have the Mexican, you have the South American, you have Spain itself. How all of that plays part of the whole culture?
Well, in the Hispanic community as a whole, religion or Catholicism plays a big part. I'm not saying everyone is Catholic, but the majority are. And they are intertwined with the culture. If you go to any Hispanic home, you will probably see the Virgen in their living room. You'll see a picture of her. And not only in Mexicans' homes. It could be Cubans' homes. It could be Dominican Republic. I mean, the Virgen has become such the devotion to the Virgen de Guadalupe has become so big now. Even among Americans, now the devotion is big. I remember not too long ago we sang at a bilingual Guadalupe service, and it's like, whoa, that's really nice. But it doesn't mean that each country does not have their devotion to their specific Mary. Like in the Puerto Rican culture, I know that they have the Virgin's name, El Cobre maybe, or the Altagracia is from the Dominican Republic. Well, they have different versions, devotions to virgins, but basically, really, spirituality is a very, very strong part of the culture. Everyone goes to church. Everyone goes to confession. I remember growing up, we would pray the rosary every night, and the Virgen, it is just a huge moment in the year, liturgical year. Mm-hmm. We've been working with a Spanish choir in Seattle for the past 2 years, and in the city of Seattle, there is a huge Hispanic population. And the Cathedral of St. James, the diocese, they asked the Hispanic community, we want to do at least one Spanish event every year for you. What day, what festivity, what do you want us to celebrate? And without hesitation, everyone said, Virgen. It's like, what? And to me, that shows, the strong devotion they have to the Virgin. Maybe because she was humble, maybe because she appeared to a humble person, and of course, she appeared in Mexico City. Mm-hmm. But that, with no doubt, that is a strong devotion. The other thing, the coming of age celebration of the Quinceañera. That's another strong event that is tied into the culture. When a woman comes of age at the age of 15, I know in the U.S., the Sweet 16 celebration is very popular. In this Hispanic tradition, the Quinceañera is very popular, and not only in Mexico, but in other Latin countries. So that's when traditionally they do a mass, and it's almost like you're at a wedding. It feels that way anyway, with the limousines and everything. But it's huge, and the Quinceañera comes to give thanks for one, but at the same time to consecrate herself to following Christ, to following Mary's footsteps. looking to her as a role model. And at some point during the quinceañera, she'll read a prayer, and most girls will bring flowers to the Virgin. So it's a very, very strong moment in the Hispanic community. The other important moment is the posada. Every year, you do las posadas, basically a reenactment of the story of the birth of Jesus. Mary and Joseph go door to door, seeking shelter, and then finally the baby's born in the barn. And so you go through that in the posadas, and they'll do these posadas for 9 days before Christmas. And every night you have the posada or the reenactment, and you'll have villancicos, music, Christmas music to accompany these processions. Some of these processions even take place on the streets. If you have nice weather in Portland, it's always raining, so we will never ever do it on the streets ever. But but that's not stopping us. We still have the posadas, even if they are in the hall, and you have the procession door to door, and with a rosary to accompany the procession. And then readings and maybe a reflection, and then after that, baby's born and everybody comes in, and you have might have piñata, sweet bread, hot chocolate, tamales or something, and so you do that for 9 days, and then until Christmas Eve, and so it's kind of exciting. It's a family event. Most of these events are tied into the whole family, and so that's why it's such a huge part of the culture. And I must say, because of the strong faith in this Hispanic community, despite the pain, despite the hardships, despite the discrimination, despite the many things, the Hispanic community is strong. And the reason why they are strong is because of their faith. And so it's rooted in them since they're little. And it makes them strong.
Well, what you would like to leave us with? About yourself and your company, or whatever you like to share.
Yeah. Well, OCP has made great strides to serve the Christians, throughout the world, throughout the U.S., and OCP works really hard to do the right thing, to provide the right resources. And it brings joy to my heart knowing that they are the leaders in providing Hispanic resources to the Hispanic community, which is very dear to my heart, of course. And so I guess for people working with the Hispanic community, we are here to support you and to help you. It doesn't mean we are perfect, but we strive really hard to do the right thing. We believe in Christ, and we feel that our goal is to touch people's hearts, to proclaim the Word of God through our music.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for all your time, and I look forward to seeing OCP. If I don't see you at the convention, I'm sure I'm going to run into you several times throughout the year. Well, I think you have an institute as well. But we look for all the great works from OCP, and I thank you for spending the hour and sharing your music and sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Tim. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Again, this has been another production of the Core Business Show, and that was an interview with Estela Garcia Lopez. You can find out all information on ocp.org. She's a recording artist and also an editor at OCP. Everybody, thank you for listening. We're about to start our next show in about 2 seconds. Again, this is the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.
Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For a free quote on equipment leasing and financing, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. And fill out the information to receive your free quote. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the Core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. Thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.